Welcome to Brobench Release Recap version 4.5 named Fornax. The Fornax cluster is a group of galaxies located in the Fornax constellation, which is about 62 million light years away from Earth. Okay. So it's an interesting constellation with a lot of details in it. So I thought it's fun to choose that particular name. Okay, I can click here to read more about it. So we have a lot of interesting and then productive features in this particular release. So let's get to them. So the first step, we have a debug logs manager and the log analyzer. So Brobench is introducing debug log management as part of these capabilities. And it is just not, a simple view the log file management. It has really a ton of capabilities in there. So let's go and see what it has. To access the debug logs, you can go to the modules and access the debug logs. And when you go there, it will show the logs for all the users. But you can actually pick one or two users for which you want to see the details for. And once you select a particular user, you can enable tracing for that user in whatever increment that you're looking for. So the dog will show up. So you can refresh here to see the latest logs. You can click on this icon to view the log text right here without having to move away from the list. You can keep clicking and it will keep showing more logs. You can also view the log text for multiple views by selecting multiple of them and view the log text. It will show all of them together so you can combine and search. If you click this icon or if you double click an entry, it will open this log analysis. So the log analysis actually it's gonna parse the log and then it's gonna show all the details of the log, including the call tree, the timeline, execution inits, as well as just the event list and as well as a raw. Okay. So when you're viewing the raw text either from here or from within here, you can click on this just to see the user debug log entries only. Okay. So this is a powerful module with a lot of capabilities. So I hope you guys explore and make use of it. Next up, API Explorer. So we have revamped, re-implemented majority of the API Explorer module to provide a lot of capabilities. So first of all, we have added the API collections capability along with a standard API registry. So when you go there, it's going to show these standard APIs which you can search and they can explore from here. For example, let's say you want to see a subject related. This one, so you can see a subject blob retrieve. If you click on that, so it's going to show the sample request, what it is, and with some pre-filling some details which you can change them. Okay. It's going to show the description as it was written in the standard registry. So if there is more description, it's going to show up in this case. For example, if you check out a subject tree, it is all the information is there. So this is another great way to understand what API Salesforce has and all that. You can save your own request. For example, you can save your request and then you can recall them. By saving, you can also favorite them, so they will show up here. And then the history of the API execution shows up here, so you can easily recall them. And by saving the API request in your own API name, you can actually create various versions. For example, let's say the versions allow you to create a snapshot of the API request with the request and the response and all of the settings as it was, except the name, of course. So that you can recall that. Let's say you are getting an error when testing an API, you can save that as a version, and then you can recall it, and then you can view that. Okay, so that's the API Explorer. It's a pretty powerful capabilities in here. And as part of the standard registry, so we're going to keep adding more APIs as and when we need them. For example, the next version probably we're going to add Data Cloud standard APIs here as part of the Data Cloud feature set. So it allows you to expand that APIs. Okay. Next up, we have a pinned shortcuts. Okay. So so the pin shortcuts are set of shortcuts you can pin to your particular setup area, the blank space in the setup area. By default, we pin some standard, the mostly used, most probable used shortcuts. Uh, so when you can easily click on them, you can navigate to that particular page. So you can disable that altogether. If you don't like it, you can click on this. You can go to edit connection and then you can say pin the shortcuts. Then if you go ahead and save it and then refresh the page, the shortcuts will go away. You can also customize what pin shortcut shows up there. For example, you can go to the shortcuts module. Here you can click on the pin shortcuts, and here you can add. Okay, so you can search here. Okay, so you can add a new pin shortcut, and then you can edit them, and then you can delete them if you want to. So you can customize the order, what pin shortcut gonna show up there, and all that. Okay, so that is a pin shortcut capability in this particular version. Okay, query formula columns. So when you go to the query module, we have introduced capability called formulas as part of this version of the Brobench, and formula is going to be used in a few other places. For example, the formula we're going to use in data loader to do the field mapping. We are using that to set the new value in the data grid, but we are also adding capability to execute formulas as a different columns as part of the query. So in this case, for example, I have built a formula. The formula is embedded between two curly braces. Okay, so I'm specifying a formula. Keep in mind, this is not Salesforce formula. This is a Brobench, the Brobench specific formula. Okay, so you can go to the Brobench and click on these formulas to understand all the different functions that are available. You can explore in the playground as well as some details about the syntax and conventions of the formula. Okay, so I'm specifying that I'm checking if these two are equal. If so, I'm saying the street is same, or I'm uppercasing this particular billing street. In this case, I'm adding a date for the created date, and then I'm formatting the date as a standard date. So I'm removing the time component. I'm just playing the date. Okay. So if you go and run this, and you can see that it adds 4 additional columns corresponding to the 4 different formula fields. They're not to just to highlight that they're not the standard columns coming from Circle, so we prefix with underscore for them so that you know that hey, they are something local or not part of the standard fields. So this is in convention with what happens when you click on edit. We add underscore change and underscore error formulas. So it shows up here and it works as any other data, just that you can't edit, of course, but just as any other column that you query, you can export it, you can filter it, and then if it is identified as a date and time, you can actually hover over and see the different formatted date. So it has the same capability, just that it generates a new data for you. So if without this particular capability, you could do that. You would have to export all this information to a Google Sheet or somewhere and then write your own formulas there. But here, you can do that in real time without having to go through that particular hassle and keeping data secure. Um, okay, so that is the formula columns. So that is some interesting and very capable feature set. So the next step, we have apply formula. So similar to that formula columns, you can actually change the data based on the formula. For example, let's say I'm going to select this shipping street, and then I'm going to go to formula column. So now it brings up in this formula apply dialog. The data here is actually in a preview mode, is not going to be applied to the data grid, but you can actually compose formulas. Let's say So I'm typing uppercase shipping street. So it's going to convert all the shipping streets into uppercase. Because it's a very simple use case, but we have a lot of functions. You can click on this to see the list of functions that are available. And you can make use of any of these functions in the formulas that you compose, and we can keep adding more. We are keep adding more formulas, but if you think some formula is necessary or is helpful, we would be able to add that. Okay, so once you're good, the preview of the data that looks correct, you can click on apply formula, so it will be applied to the grid. Then after that, you can go and click on save. Okay, so that is a data grid, the query data grid, the formula apply formula capability in this version. Next up, we have a query editor tabs. So if you have noticed that previously there was only one editor tab, so now we have multiple. So you can create, editor specific to environment, specific to your client, what your use case is, and then you can bring them up. You can close it to go it away, but it is still there. You can click here and you can come back. You can bring it back up, and if you right click, it provides a means to rename the editor as well as delete the editor completely, so that editor is removed. Okay, So that is a query editor tabs feature. Because now we want to provide a one standard editor always that you cannot remove or anything. So we renamed this editor to default editor. So it is always there. You can't change it, you can't rename it, you can't delete it. But you can create additional tabs in the query builder. Okay. Next step, we have a query VARs history or a caching. So, we have had this query variable capability in Brobench, so you can click on it and then it brings up the variable dialog. And now, whatever the value that you enter, for example, in this case, let's say I've entered Dublin City 2, and then next time you execute, let's say I'm going to make some changes to the query and execute this. Previously, you would have to type this whole thing. Okay, so now those values are remembered. It works as well for IDs as well. For example, if I go and select all the account, and then let's say I had entered some IDs here instead of just a single test. Now those account IDs will be cached. For example, let's say I queried for these account IDs. Okay, account IDs. Okay, that's ID in, not IDs. Okay, so I have entered. So now if I bring it back up, I correct the issue, bring it back up. See, those values are retained and populated. So now we can just go and click on execute, and then voila, it is used. So keep in mind that particular caching is the session specific. So if you refresh the page, that data will go away. That just for the in class, but for singular values, you can still recall them. So it's stored within that. Okay. So that is about the query variable caching in Brobench. Next step, we have a ignore dangling commas. So it is common mistake that when you type, let's say from account, so this is not a valid construct in Salesforce. It will give an error because I have this comma, which is extra comma. Sometimes it's called dangling commas in other languages. So we refer to that particular terminology. So now Brobench parser has been enhanced to ignore that. So if you go and run it, it'll just ignore that particular extra comma and then runs as usual. So if you go back and check the executed query, you see that that particular name comma is removed in the query that we sent to SFDC for execution. Okay, so that is ignoring dangling commas in the query editor. Okay. Next step, we have a record the field filter and the field groups. So I can see that it is possible that we have 800 fields in our object, right? I mean, not a good idea, but it is possible that I have seen a lot of instances we have run out of custom field limit in an object. That's 800. So we have a great way to filter to grid in the grid. However, if you are keep viewing the same data set and same set of fields, it can be painful to keep searching for the same thing. So we provided a capability, two different things. One is that you can filter by the type. We automatically show all the fields, and then we show how many number of fields of that particular type is there in this record. In this case, there are two booleans, and if you select that, it shows those two boolean fields. Similarly, you can select date and time. It shows all the date and time fields and other types as you can imagine. Okay. Along with that, we have provided a capability to create and manage your own field groups. For example, let's say I have created a field group called billing. Okay, I'm the account right now. So and similarly, I have created another field group called shipping. So the billing has all the billing fields, the shipping has all the shipping fields, and you can create your own. So for example, let's say I want to create only lat and the longitude fields, for example, or a city maybe, city fields. So I can click on here, add to a new group. Let's say let's search for a city and let's all the cities. Okay, so there are 4 cities. So let's create a field group for cities. Okay, so when you do that, and so now that cities will show up here. Now we can go back to the cities, and then it will show those cities. Okay, some cities here. Let's say I show the billing, cities, shipping, and other things if you want to. Okay, so you can manage all the billing, the groups that you have created. You can click on this, and then it shows the billing, the field group. Remember, the field group is specific to an object, or if you type all, then it becomes applicable for all objects. Okay, so this is going to be the really productive feature for the data analyst, for BSA, the business analyst, and the developers to be able to quickly see the data that you're looking for. Okay. So next up, we have an org monitor set of enhancements. So first of all, when you go, we have added this org info as a new tab. So it just shows organization details, so you can quickly see, what is it is and all that. Org limits has been enhanced to include additional limits that you see in your org. For example, we have added that is org limit, which was there. So we have a tenant uses limit. So this is another set of limits, Salesforce exposes. Some of them are actually duplicated between those two, but it is good to have more information in this case. We have a user licenses, so it can shows how many licenses they have and all that. And then the package license as well, if there are any package licenses. These are dev org. We don't have that, but it would have. We also added a control to show me the limits that are using that 95% are above. Then it shows only those. Or if you say 70% are above, it shows those. Or 50% and above in this case. 25% looks like we don't have any. This is a dev. So it's either we have 100% or less than 1%. But you get the idea. If you select one of these and then it shows the limits, that percentage used or more. Okay, so that you can quickly care about. Let's say I usually care about 70% or more if I'm looking after an org and say show me which org using this particular limit. So I focus on those limits and see. Okay. So that is then in the same space. So we have deploy results. Sorry, we have enhancement for a setup audit. So by default, we show the details for 24 hours of the usage. So we have added this time switcher here. So you can easily, when you go here, you can just say, hey, show me the setup audit in the last 15 minutes. So you really don't have to go do any other search. You can just say, show me in the 24 hours. That's a default. Or you can just choose other data as well. Okay, and the same thing is enhanced here. So that shows up here. You can include additional control, additional filter criteria if you want to search. And the same date filter has been added to the login history. So by default, we show the 24 hours of history when you go to that particular tab, but you can change to Sunday, show me last 5 minutes, error conditions, and whatever. Okay. So that is a org monitor based various features within org monitor enhancements. Okay. Next step, view value enhancements. Okay, so for example, let's say I go to the record. So I have typically you have a long text field, right, like this. You can say view value. Okay, so you can click on that. So this is JSON, but it's JSON is not that funny. The need to read, if it is not syntax colored or formatted. So you can actually set the content type as JSON, so it will syntax color it, and also you can format it. So the formatting will work for JSON, XML, as well as HTML content, and as well as syntax coloring. So that is the first enhancement in the view value. And the second one is that if you're dealing with more complicated information that is actually combined, let's say uh, different different types of within the same data, you can extract that particular piece to in a different tab so that you can syntax color it and you can just do that. For example, I have this sample data here that has a JSON content and JSON content which is actually embedded as a string. You can see that slash double quotes. I have XML as well as I'm HTML. So I can just select this JSON and then I can say view value as JSON. You can click on a view value as, go here, select the JSON and format it, but you can avoid all of that by just saying view value as JSON. It will try to do all those three things in one go. For example, if you click on it and then it shows the data in a formatted way. So this is a great way if you're a developer, if you're troubleshooting in a production, you can just extract that and view the data and then format it and extract it. And it also provides, remember, the filter lines, sort of search and other capabilities. Similarly, for example, if you look at this case, I have this data, right, which is the JSON embedded within a string. I can even format that. I can say view value as JSON. So we try to parse it and then show that data so that you can see in more correct format. Similarly, XML. For XML, we don't have any shortcut because it's not that quite often you deal with XML. In this case, you would have to go to view value. You can set as XML, and then you can format it, and then you can see the data. The same thing is applicable for HTML. So you can select an HTML, click on a view value, set this as HTML, and the format it. It will format the HTML for your liking. Okay, so that is a view value enhancement in Brobench, and the view value works from within data grid as well as from within the debug log. For example, let's say you open a debug log and you have a text here. You can actually click on it and then you can open. For example, when you go here, view value, you bring up the same dialog and then you can extract it and create a sub tabs to view the specific data that you're looking for. So that's a great way to even explore when you in the debug log as part of this module. Okay. The next step, we have introduced some keyboard shortcuts. So this is the first iteration of we are starting introduced keyboard shortcuts. So we're going to iterate further, provide more capabilities around UI controls where you can change and all that. But for now, we have added 3 shortcuts. Go check out the help to know what they are. So for example, Command K in Mac, Control K in Windows, it opens this particular dialog, so which you can actually search for all the shortcuts and navigate to them easily. Control Shift K, it brings up the current record details in a pop-up mode. Control Shift Alt K or Command Shift Alt K opens the same Brobench in a new tab for that particular record. So if you are kind of the usage that you always open a new tab, you can do that. So we have these 3 shortcuts, but more will be added as and when we approach that. So the next step, we are also introducing a new module called miscellaneous tools. So we already had a text tool. It was an independent tool, but as we added a new tools actually, so I think it is good to combine them, not to complicate the Brobench organization. So we have this miscellaneous tools. We have a text tool as it was. It has been enhanced to provide other capabilities. Go check out the help for details. We added this auth checker. So the auth checker is a mechanism that we have had personally ourselves because as you build the Brobench, it allows you to check if the credential is valid, if the access token that you have is valid, or if the client credentials can you connect using OAuth client credential, or if you have can you connect using OAuth username and the password, or if you have a refresh token, is it valid? You can check and do all of that. Okay, so this is 100% secure because the data never leaves your computer and it is used exclusively to connect to the Salesforce services. It is a lot safer than using similar tools in a third-party online services because you are not sure how they're going to consume that particular data. Okay, in this case, you can see the network panel, see the data, what data is being sent, where it is being sent to. So you have full control on that. So go check this out, this particular module. So this is a very interesting tool. And this is the miscellaneous tools. I think we're going to be adding more tools as we approach. Okay. So that is all about the Fornax release 4.5. So as you can see, there's a lot of exciting features and interesting features. I hope you guys leverage and share some feedback. Thank you.